So whenever you want, do I have to press something?
Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, herzlich willkommen in der Bundespressekonferenz, zu dieser Pressekonferenz, in der uns der Generalkommissar für das Hilfswerk der Vereinten Nationen für Palästina-Flüchtlinge im Nahen Osten die aktuelle Situation aus seiner Sicht und die Schwierigkeiten der humanitären Hilfe im Nahen Osten beschreiben wird und darstellen wird. Herr Philippe Lazzarini, Mr. Commissioner General, very welcome to the Bundespressekonferenz, a very warm welcome. Meine Moderation und auch die Fragen werden in Deutsch sein. Es sind Übersetzungsgeräte draußen für alle, die das möchten. Auch hier vorne, Herr Lazzarini hat ein Übersetzungsgerät. Das heißt, Sie können auch die Fragen auf Deutsch stellen, wenn Sie das wollen. So viel der Vorrede und wir beginnen. Mr. Lazzarini, I hand over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jana, and thank you also for the invitation at the Bundespress conference. I think it's the first time that I'm coming here, so it's a real privilege. We definitely are meeting at a difficult time for the region, a difficult time for the Middle East. We have marked a few days ago the 1 year of the terrible massacre, terrorist attack of the Hamas in Israel, and after that the unprecedented war which has hit also Gaza. There is no doubt that this has been a year of profound loss and profound suffering in the region. We still have hostages who remain captive in Gaza, and families are left behind in a very, very deep distress. 1 year later also, Gaza is unrecognizable, and this is also the reason why there have been so many calls, so many efforts to try to ensure a ceasefire, the release of the hostages, but also a beefing up of the humanitarian assistance in Gaza. Let me just give a little overview of where we stand in terms of the humanitarian situation in the region, but also talk a little bit about the specificities related to UNRWA, but more broadly also for the United Nations in the region. I have to say, and it's, you know, I'm with you, a representative of the media, international media. It's 1 year now, and none of you has been allowed to go to Gaza, which is a pity. And most of the information that we are receiving are information we are either receiving by heroic local journalists or by organizations operating in Gaza. But of course, in a situation like this one, when we have so many different types of a narrative, it is of utmost importance, I believe, that we continue to ask for the presence of, or the access of international journalists. I have to say Gaza is a place which horrifies even the most seasoned humanitarian workers. It's a place of all the possible superlative. It has become a kind of wasteland, which I would say is almost unlivable. People are just on a daily basis struggling to stay alive in a kind of a pilot automatic mode, struggling against disease and struggling also against hunger. People in this in Gaza Strip have been real pinballs. They have been constantly on the move, depending on how the military operations were conducted. But that's also an indication that there haven't been so far any safe place. It's also a place of all the possible superlative when we look at the level of people killed, the number of children having been orphaned. If you look at the number of journalists killed, health workers killed, but also the number of UN and aid workers being killed. The agencies that I represent saw 229 staff killed in Gaza only, up to the 300 humanitarian staff being killed since the beginning of the year. The level of destruction is also unprecedented. We estimate that 60–70% of the infrastructure in Gaza Strip have been destroyed. This concerns also the United Nations. Our installation have been largely also damaged and destroyed, despite the fact that many people came to our installation to seek protection of the United Nations, which unfortunately they did not get all the time. I have also to say that the children are the ones bearing the brunt of this war. Beside the number of children killed or orphaned, my concern today is the fact that up to 2 million people in the Gaza Strip, we have 1 million people below the age of 18, and among them we have more than 600,000 girls and boys of the age of primary and secondary school who are currently living in the rubble, deeply traumatized, having already lost 1 to 2 years of education. And the more we will be waiting to bring them back into an education environment, the more we will be sowing the seeds for even more resentment, even more hatred here in the region. And this is also the reason why I have called member states to make, beyond the life-saving operation into Gaza Strip, education a collective priority, also because education is the only asset which has never ever been taken away from the Palestinians. They have never ever been dispossessed from education. It has always been the last source of pride they had. In this context, you know also that we are very much engaged in a polio campaign. The polio was eradicated 25 years ago, came back very quickly since the beginning of the war. We have succeeded a first round together with WHO and UNICEF, but this round of vaccination has also shown that if there is a political will, there is some assistance we can provide in the Gaza Strip. Since the beginning of this week, we are engaged now, together with the Israeli authorities and our partner, into a second round of vaccination, which I hope will be successful, but we also know that this is not enough to ensure a better future for the children. In Gaza, maybe just a last comment, you have seen that the reality between the north and the south is very, very different. There are intense fighting taking place right now in the north. We have about 400,000 people still stuck there who are basically asked to move to the south but are still in the north, and the access to these people has become extremely, extremely complicated. Otherwise, the rest of the population is now concentrated in the south, I would say, in a territory which represents 10% of the surface of the Gaza Strip. So the bulk of the population is now concentrated in 10% of the Strip. We are very concerned because there have been much less assistance recently. We are very concerned about the degradation again of the food situation. Beyond that, we have a situation in the West Bank that we are not really talking about, which I believe would hit the headline if there wouldn't be the situation in Gaza. You have a kind of a silent war taking place, boiling in the West Bank. Since October 7, more than 700 people have been killed. Clashes between Palestinian armed groups and security forces are fierce, and security intervention in the camp most of the time end up with the destruction of public infrastructure. We have seen also the spiraling of the war now in Lebanon. I was in Beirut over the weekend. People are clearly holding their breath, wondering what will be next. Will Beirut or Lebanon become a new Gaza or not. There are some fears because after 2 weeks, you had already a large-scale movement of a population estimated at more than 1.2 million people. You had a number of people killed, which is already higher than during the war in 2006. And there is a sense of very deep anxiety within the population because they have seen also that there is no real safe place in Lebanon. Any village, wherever it is located, can become a target. In this context, as UNRWA, like in Gaza, we have opened a certain number of shelters. The particularity for us is that we have opened shelters which are accessible for everyone, Lebanese, Syrian refugees, and also Palestinian refugees. I highlight this because in the context of Lebanon, this is not a given to bring these three communities on the same, in the same shelter. Now, so the needs in the region have never been so big, but at the same time, the agency has never ever been so much under attack. We had already what I describe the attack in Gaza, where staff have been killed, premises have been damaged, convoys and operations have been targeted or prevented to access the population. One difficulty we have in Gaza and regarding our operation is the total breakdown of civil order. There is no civil order anymore, so convoys are exposed to families, emerging armed groups, and can be looted. But we have also been confronted to a situation where Israeli at the checkpoint are not listening anymore to the chain of command and are also preventing actively a convoy to cross lines. In this context, you have seen that there have been quite a number of political statements about the future of UNRWA. Its dismantlement has become for some a kind of objective of the war. We have also seen the current legislative effort at the Knesset aiming at dismantling or getting rid of the agency, mainly in the occupied Palestinian territory. This bill, most likely, will be adopted as from the end of the month, and the question will be, how will this bill be implemented? I briefed last week the Security Council, highlighted basically what the implementation of the bill could mean operationally beyond the life-saving operation taking place right now in Gaza. There is also an impact in the medium term because our agency, in the absence of a functioning administration, in the absence of a functioning Palestinian governance, administration or state, in the absence of a state, is the only partner which can provide education at the scale of the needs of the children in Gaza and in the West Bank, and the only one, in the absence again of an administration, to provide at scale primary health to the population. Beyond that, there are also obviously legal implications about a further weakening of IHL, a disrespect of the UN Charter, and also going against the ruling of the International Court of Justice. But beyond that, also politically, what we see is that if we succeed to get rid of an agency like UNRWA in this context, it is a further weakening of the common instrument that our multilateral system has today. And if we let it go in the context of the occupied Palestinian territory, there is absolutely no reason why this would be replicated anywhere else. We have also seen that the attack on UNRWA are not just limited on UNRWA. Other UN agencies basically have also been phased out, like the head of UN Women, like the Human Rights Office, like the head of OCHA, and we see today that this has now shifted in South Lebanon with the UNIFIL troops. Maybe let me just And because I think this is also important, that you know that the agency, after the horrible allegation in January about staff having allegedly participated to the massacre of October 7, has not only gone through investigation, but has gone through a total overview of its internal system, the so-called Catherine Colonna report. There are 50 recommendations that the agency has fully embraced. I have a team within my office fully dedicated to the implementation of the recommendation, and over the last few months, a number of progress have been made when it comes to the vetting of the staff, when it comes to our partnership with financial institutions, ensuring that any sanction list be respected by the financial institution, but we have also adopted or adjusted a certain number of internal policies. So basically, my ask, obviously, to the member states for the months to come is ensure not only that there is a ceasefire, but after a ceasefire to have a genuine political, genuine process leading to the implementation of a political solution. And this is how an organization like ours can reinstate its temporary nature by helping any transition to be successful, to ensuring critical services to the Palestinian refugees, and at the same time contributing to build up the capacity of the future entity taking over the activity of the agency. Meanwhile, obviously, we will continue to need, beyond the political support, the necessary financial support. The good news is that all the countries have resumed their contribution to the agency, except one for which we will have more clarity as from beginning of next year, since the freeze of the US contribution is taking place until March 2025. I think I will stop here. Of course, I could share more, but I'm sure you have also a number of questions. So thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you very much for these insights in this horrific, depressing situation and for your perspective. So we come to the questions. You have the translation here. It should be in the right position. Wir kommen zu den Fragen. Ich würde Sie bitten, sich jeweils kurz vorzustellen, unserem Gast, und ich beginne bei Herrn Jung.
Thilo Jung from Young and Naive. Mr. Lazzarini, could you explain what are your political demands from Germany, the German government, who is very, very loyal to the Israeli government that in turn wants to see UNRWA gone?
Thank you. The primary political demand is to shield the role of UNRWA in any transition. There is an overdue ceasefire, but there will be a ceasefire at a given time. And the real question after that is what will happen between the ceasefire and a day after. There will be a long day in between, an excruciating day in between, which can last 2, 3, 4 years until you have the necessary capacity of a Palestinian authoritarian governance to take over activities, but until the day you have the necessary confidence of all partners that now it's time to invest. And this is where an agency like ours can help to go through this very difficult time by ensuring, for example, that we are not sacrificing the 600,000, 700,000 children today living in the rubble. Basically, my ask is it would be foolish to throw the baby with the water at the same time. We need an alternative. We cannot, by getting rid of UNRWA, create a void. If you create a void without an alternative, we know that there is no environment, no ecosystem which likes void. And the question is, it will be filled. The real question after that is, will it really be filled by something we collectively wanted? And here your answer is as good as mine.
It was reported last week that Israel is set to seize the land in which UNRWA's headquarters lie in occupied East Jerusalem, like to build housing for illegal settlers. Can you confirm that, and what would that mean? And could you clarify what the Israeli orders for UNRWA's activities in Israel are?
It is too early to know how the bill, once adopted, will be implemented or will be interpreted by the government. Now, it is true that the land authority have issued, but that's not new, by the way, already a year ago, a kind of order for the agency to vacate the land. Now, what you are referring to, it's an instruction which was already issued some time ago, but which was now published on the website of the land authority. Now, yes, there is this intent. We are also hearing that some more extremist element of the Jerusalem municipality are also willing to organize demonstration as from the day the bill will be adopted, and cut also the services in the compound in order to force the agency to be evicted. This has not taken place yet. East Jerusalem is East Jerusalem, is for the international community an occupied Palestinian land in the absence of a political solution. Would this really unfold? My question would be, what would be the reaction of the international community to see a UN member state seizing the headquarters of a UN organization mandated by the UN General Assembly in order to do settlement expansion? And I think the question has to be brought back to the member states after that.
Dann ist Herr Basay, dann im Anschluss Herr Jessen.
Ich werde meine Frage auf Deutsch stellen. In Deutschland gibt es eine Diskussion, die deutsche Regierung sagt, es gebe kein Anzeichen, dass Israel in Gaza Völkermord und kein Kriegsverbrechen begeht. Wie beurteilen Sie diese Aussage? Und eine zweite Frage, wenn Sie erlauben, würden Sie einen Rüstungsexportstopp gegen Israel begrüßen? Würde dies die israelische Regierung in ihrem Vorgehen zügeln?
Thank you. You know, the question of the genocide has been submitted to the International Court of Justice, and this is definitely the competent body which will tell us how they, qualify, label what's unfolding in Gaza. Now, when it comes to UN, witness in the Gaza Strip, we have reported regularly our concern about the disproportionate level of destruction, the disproportionate casualties, people killed, the number of children also who have been killed, maimed, or orphaned in the Gaza Strip, the fact that health center and hospital have not been better protected, and we have also expressed concern about number of forced displacement. We have also expressed concern about the absence of political will to properly address unfolding hunger in Gaza. So, we have few times indicated that this trend might amount to war crimes, but again, the qualification ultimately will have to be will have to come from either the ICC or the ICJ in the future. But as a UN, we have more than once expressed concern of this nature. I personally have done also more than once. Now, what needs to be done? I think member states have to look at how can they influence influence some patterns we believe have crossed the red line. I have more than once indicated that I'm very concerned about the future relevancy of the international humanitarian law, the future relevance of the Geneva Convention. And here I would like also to say that in the region there is a growing feeling that in fact IHL applies a little bit à la carte, that it applies in some context, but not in the context of Israel-Palestine. This has another type of impact. For example, we were the only one having a human rights curriculum, a program in our curriculum for now about 20 years, which is a program which was funded by the US. Now we have more and more children and teachers asking, why do you keep this if it does not apply to us? What do you expect from us? So I always tell them, but you know, we need this as a reference, because a world without reference, I mean, can only sink into more, I mean, a chaos of barbarism. So all this to say that, yes, we need to find ways to make sure that this war does not become the exception, that this war be also conducted with the respect of rule of war.
Herr Jessen und dann Frau Küchner.
Mr. Lazzarini, in the debate on the role of UNRWA, there had been accusations who look at UNRWA like being kind of an, let's call it, humanitarian camouflage to support Hamas. There had been investigations on the role of UNRWA staff at the Hamas massacre of October 7th. Can you give us the definite results of these investigations? How many UNRWA staff had been involved, and are there still any open cases to be further investigated?
Thank you. Officially, they started with 12 staff, went up to 19 staff, and each of these staff have been investigated by the internal oversight services from the United Nations Secretariat. This was commissioned by the Secretary General, and the outcome of this investigation was shared at the end of July, basically. Basically, the outcome was the following. For half of the staff, more or less, for half of the staff, there is absolutely not enough evidence even to continue the investigation after months of cooperation between the investigative team and the Israeli authority, but also other member states, because sometimes member states do also have some intelligence information that we have asked them to share with us. And for the other half staff, I think 9 staff, the conclusion was what I would say inconclusive in the way that it was said that if the information can be authenticated, it might appear that the person might have participated. The problem being, in this context, that the information could not be authenticated per se. Having said that, at the UN agency, we have taken the decision that all the staff has been dismissed. All the staff is known by the Israeli authorities. Some of the staff have been since killed. Other staff seems to be in detention. This is on the 19th. Then there have been, as you might know, other lists which have been circulated, and there was mainly a list of 100 names that I did receive, And I have immediately asked the Israeli government to help us to look into the list. And for the time being, we are not in a position to do this because there have never been any response. So in terms of investigation related to the October 7 massacre right now, there is no open investigation anymore at this stage. We stand ready to look into the list which circulates now for some time, the famous list of the 100. I have written more than once to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The SG and the OIOS team also have asked to substantiate the allegation beyond the list that we have received. So far, there haven't been any additional information shared, and also the other member states who might have more information that we have not been in a position to share any information with us on this one.
If you allow a second question, you know about the letter the US administration had sent during the weekend to the Israeli government demanding urgently to give access for more humanitarian help. Is it your impression or your knowledge that the Israeli government is accepting the consequences of restricted limitation which might lead to death by starvation in Gaza? Do you think this is part of the Israel strategy or acceptance of consequences?
You know, hunger has never ever prevailed per se in Gaza. And if after a few months already, because we had a real alert in spring, you might remember, which was the impact of a very, very tight blockade on the Gaza Strip, that the hunger has been artificially created. It's a man-made, it's an avoidable hunger. We know what the solution should be. The solution should be is to let convoys and food enter and flow and be poured into the Gaza Strip to avoid such a situation. Now, the hunger, as we know, it's not just food, it's a combination of stress due to the war, the destruction, but also the extraordinary unsanitary condition people are living in. Kids are just living among sewage water and piled up garbage, which is the best nest for catching any kind of disease. So yes, I do believe that hunger in Gaza Strip is totally avoidable. Now, question, is it intentional? I cannot answer this question at all, but avoidable, definitely. Are we aware of the situation? Yes, we are aware, because there are regular, I would say, assessment being undertaken on how the malnutrition is evolving in the Gaza Strip. There will be again one shortly, but with information from August, and we already know that over the last 2-3 weeks, there was no convoy entering into the north, except yesterday with the announcement of 30 trucks, and we have been a huge drop of convoys in the south, with only an average of 50-60 for 2 million people, while we estimate the number needed much, much higher, and the few convoys which entered, because of the total breakdown of the law and order, have also been looted. So there is a real risk today that we, again, entering into the winter, the immunity system of the people, it's much more weakened, that we enter a situation where famine or acute malnutrition is unfortunately, again, a likelihood. And again, this can be avoided. We have shown that we can have a polio campaign. So why can we not bring food in the Gaza Strip? For too long, crossings have been closed. Then we have looked at, can we bring from the sea, can we bring from the air? While the answer, and the easy answer is, come through the crossing. So, yeah.
Dann ist Frau Küfner dran, im Anschluss Herr Nils und nochmals die Bitte, sich jeweils kurz vorzustellen.
Yes, Mr. Lazzarini, I have a question. Is it actually, in your assessment, possible to deliver humanitarian aid without at least toleration by Hamas currently in Gaza? And you mentioned that you have evidence that there is a failure in the chain of command within the Israeli military. Is this a concern that you've taken up with Israel in terms of, and what has been the response? And if you allow me a third question, can you be a bit more concrete in terms of what your expectations are towards countries like Germany, who are staunch allies of Israel? Has the German diplomacy actually been effective in the past in allowing in aid? And if it's not effective right now, what would be your concrete expectation of Germany?
Dann sage ich an dieser Stelle nochmal dazu, unsere Regel gilt, eine Frage mit der Möglichkeit einer Nachfrage pro Person. Die Zeit ist fortgeschritten und es sind noch viele Namen auf der Liste, einfach, dass jeder drankommt. Jetzt sind sie gestellt, ich war zu langsam.
I agree with you. Many questions in one question.
Yeah.
With the breakdown of civil order, mainly in the south, we have seen an emergence of different armed groups, tribe, families, trying to fill the void left behind. And there is a kind of competition, and I believe that they are the ones who are primarily behind the looting of convoys that we have seen over the last few weeks. Now, with whom are they working, with whom they are affiliated? I cannot answer this question. I don't know. But that's a trend we have seen. We keep also hearing that when there was a commercial sector, that they might have been taxed by Hamas. True or untrue, I don't know. I know that the Israeli authority have also decided to slow down the input of the commercial sector. What I can say is that when it comes to WFP or UNRWA assistance in the Gaza Strip, we are the direct distributor. So if it has not been looted with the families in the south and we are trying to find a solution, we are the one directly distributing in our shelter. So we have never ever any kind of intermediary in a distribution process. When it comes, the other question was on the checkpoint. Yes, we have taken up each incident is systematically taken up with our Israeli counterpart. We had an important incident a few weeks ago where basically the people manning the checkpoint did not want to listen to the instruction which were coming from the chain of command, and we had a team exposed for more than 8 hours to an extraordinary precarious security situation. You might recall a convoy which was stopped with bulldozer emptying sand and stones and intimidating, in fact, the entire staff. And this was an indication about this chain of command, and we have indeed protested. There is an investigation going on. We do not have the conclusion of the investigation, but we have been told that this will not be repeated. So we have to test again our deconfliction being the way we are coordinating all the movement within Gaza with the Israeli civil administration of the army. There are coordination mechanisms constantly involving Israel, the United Nations, the US. I know that Germany also is very, very active in conveying messages in order to improve the coordination. But as we know, we are all very frustrated. It's excruciatingly complicated, difficult, but I also do believe ultimately it's complicated and difficult because of the absence of a proper political will to make it happen.
Dann Herr Nils und im Anschluss Herr Busch. Ist noch nicht an? Nee. Jetzt.
Yeah, no. Mr. Lazzarini, it's difficult to understand your work in Gaza especially and also in the West Bank and some countries around, as far as I know, when there are still governmental voices in Israel that accept hunger, starvation as kind of a weapon of war. So could you again point the degree of cooperation you still have? I mean, you mentioned that there is cooperation with Israel agencies and maybe with international agencies beyond, but is it possible, because it sounds like a contradiction, to have that atmosphere in Israel and then your work?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be the first contradiction. There are many contradictions going on. It is true that there are very strong voices who basically have said we want to eliminate UNRWA. Basically have said that it's part of the objective of the war. We need to get rid of UNRWA. On this one, you heard me many times that I believe that the motivation behind it is of a political nature, that the real objective is to strip the Palestinians from the refugee status and also to weaken the aspiration of the Palestinians for future self-determination. It's a way to weaken, in fact, the two-state solution and the peace process. So there is an objective behind it. Now, I also believe that attacking the UN that way and all the red line crossed that we have heard about is also a way to, bury the international humanitarian law and say this is applicable everywhere except in the context of Israel and Palestine. Now, yes, we have a political narrative, and then you have the pragmatism of the people dealing on the day-to-day. So basically, our colleagues who are operating in Gaza or our colleagues who are operating in the West Bank, they continue to have on a day-to-day their operational relation with their Israeli counterpart from the Kogat. Now, are they easier today than they were before? Not at all. They are sometimes overshadowed by the atmosphere that you just described. It makes it more and more complicated. And I will not hide the fact that we might reach a point that we won't be able anymore to operate. And if we cannot operate anymore in Gaza, it's not just UNRWA as the main provider of services, but you have also the rest of the UN system, which very much rely and depends on the platform that the agency has offered so far. So we are very near to a possible breaking point. When will it be? I don't know, but we are very near of that.
Dann Herr Busch und im Anschluss Herr Striezel.
UNRWA is a very unique organization. There is also another UN refugee agency, the UNHCR. And there are politicians in Germany who urge the German government to look for new partners in the region. So why, according to you, why and how long will it be necessary to have a special agency in the region instead of UNHCR?
Well, the international community and the UN General Assembly and the member states have said that UNRWA should last until the day there is a lasting and fair political solution for the Palestinian. In a certain extent, UNRWA was created because there was no political solution for the Palestinian at the time of the partition in the region. Now, we are 75 years later. That's the expression and an indication that we have failed to promote a lasting and fair solution for the Palestinian. Now the question is, after this seismic, I would say, shock in the region, will this, yes or not, trigger the necessary will, once for all, to be genuinely committed to find or implement this political solution? I hope so. And if it is the case, we can reinstate UNRWA as a temporary organization. Now, UNHCR has a different mandate. UNHCR is being asked to promote durable solution. UNRWA is not asked to promote a durable solution. It's asked to provide human development services to one of the most destitute communities in the region, the Palestinian refugees, until this solution, being the political solution, has been agreed, whereas UNHCR is promoting a return. By the way, the return for UNHCR is 80% of its case load, and then promote resettlement or integration in the countries. Secondly, what makes us unique that UNHCR does not is we have been asked to provide government-like services. We are the Ministry of Education of the Palestinian refugees in the absence of a state or administration taking over. We are the kind of Ministry of Health, whereas UNHCR does not provide these services at all.
Dann Herr Strieze und im Anschluss die Kollegin 2 Reihen weiter davor.
I think it was, I believe, in May that you traveled to Beirut to calm down the strikes that have taken place there from the UNRWA's Teachers Association. The reason that you were forced to suspend the head of this association, Mr. Fatia Sharif. And there were many media reports that that later on you reinstated him to give in to the pressure. So my question would be, why should the German taxpayer trust your agency to stop facilitating or using the funds to facilitate the murder, the rape, the abduction of Jews, when even you yourself were traveling to Beirut and giving in to the pressure of your own agency's employees?
Well, first of all, this is a completely wrong information, distorted information. This person has never, ever been reinstated. This person, I'm the first one, far before other organizations were drawing our attention, to have decided to suspend, to investigate, and to put the person in leave without pay. The first day I had the slightest suspicion where someone said he might have a role in the Hamas. I said, no way, no way. Then, you're right, I went to Beirut because I heard that our colleagues were put under pressure and prevented to have access to our installation. And I said, this is totally unacceptable. And I went to Beirut to tell the Palestinian community and to tell the Lebanese government, army and government, that I will not tolerate this. And if they extend one more day this pressure on us, I'm ready to hand over the keys to them, but I will not accept any interference from them on the UN. So reinstating is total disinformation from day one. I have never, ever reinstated this person. In the contrary, I have reaffirmed the investigation, the suspension, and the person will not be paid. And I have also been clear that whenever a case is brought to our attention, we will act accordingly. I keep saying, we are not operating in a no-risk environment. This region is far too divided, too emotional, too much history. But as a UN agency, I will act with a zero-tolerance policy. So if there is a case surfacing having breached UN principle, UNESCO standard when it comes to the teaching, we will handle accordingly. We are a human development organization. We are not a state, so I don't have a police or the intelligence information. But each time we have staff, we inform the authorities about our staff. And if the authority have a concern, they tell us. But going back to this, and I'm glad you asked the question, I've never, ever, ever reinstated this person. And this was a total, deliberate disinformation.
So just one follow-up question. Mentioning the Colonel report that you also, which was mainly authored to whitewash critical issues, but one issue that even the Colonna report mentioned was the incitement, the hatred that's being spread in UNRWA schools through the materials that are being used. And I would want to know what's. I mean, this is an issue that's that's being reported on for at least 2 decades, and there's been no solution to this from your side. You haven't revised the school books. You're taking over either the PA school books, or you're using those school books, those textbooks being produced by some of your members who were then turned out to be members of terrorist organizations. So I would like to know what's the measure that you're going to implement to tackle this, when even the Colonna report was mentioning this.
Well, first of all, I refute the whitewashing report. I think it's a criticism on the integrity of a very integral person, being the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, Catherine Colonna, who was supported by 3 credible, reputable Scandinavian organizations from Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. Secondly, when it comes to the curriculum, which is not a new issue, as an agency, we are working on reading every pages being provided in our school to look at to which extent the content is compatible with the UNESCO standard. Our director is seconded by UNESCO. Now we have 3 sets of issues. One set of issues is the age appropriateness of the children. The second set of issues is the gender perception in the book, and the third one, the issue that you raise about tolerance, about narrative, and I have always been very clear. I'm not trying to reconcile the Palestinian narrative with the Israeli narrative. It's mission impossible as long as the conflict has not been resolved, and you need sometimes after you have resolved the conflict. The good thing is that for many of the issues, we have an international narrative, the United Nations, we have resolution, we have a language behind it. And that's what's being taught in our school. So basically, whatever would not be in conformity, we are providing the necessary guidance on the type of language to be used. Books are indeed the books of the PA. We are not choosing in every country. Even UNHCR is saying that in every country you have to use the curriculum and the textbook of the country where you are. So that's what we are doing. But we are adding critical thinking, guidance, coaching. We are adding human rights curriculum. And by the way, there was about 10 years ago a comparative study of the Israeli curriculum and the Palestinian curriculum. The outcome was extraordinarily similar between the 2 curricula. Now, there is room for improvement, and we continue to work on it. I'm personally involved now with PA and the President, informing that we will even go a step further, that there are some issues which will just have to disappear from the book in our school. The European Union, which is the main supporter of the Ministry of Education, we are working hand in hand with them in order to continue to improve the issue, which I would say are far too toxic to be maintained and needs once for all to be addressed. But teaching anti-Semitism, there is absolutely no room in our class for that. And if we are confronted to a situation where this would happen, appropriate measure would be taken against the people responsible of that.
Dann bin ich bei der Kollegin 2 Reihen weiter vorne. Ich habe jetzt noch 2 Kollegen, Herrn Jung und Herrn Jessen, auf der Liste, die sich nochmal zum zweiten Mal melden. Da gucken wir mal auf die Zeit. Ich würde gerne innerhalb der Stunde bleiben und vielleicht schaffen wir es so, dass wir eine Frage pro Person haben ohne Nachfrage. Das wäre vielleicht ein Kompromiss. Die Kollegin.
Yeah, my name is Katharina Kunert from RTL and NTV. I would like to come back to the demand of the US administration on Israel to improve the situation in Gaza. Do you think this will actually help? Do you think we will see changes in a certain amount of time? And if not, if we not see the changes, do you think that the US administration is actually going to change their policies or take any steps?
I cannot answer the second part of the question because I have no idea what the administration will do. On the first part, I really hope that any of the intervention, any of the effort, anyone Israel is listening to will have an impact in order to improve a situation which is just a calamity. I mean, so I really hope they will have an impact. We have seen this week that we have been able to bring a convoy to the north. Will it be a one-off? Is it the beginning of the opening of the crossing, and can we again assist the people? I hope so. Now, if it is now, is it thanks to this démarche? Maybe, possibly. But there is a need, and I think it's good that member states are asking for significant situation to improve what today is an apocalyptic catastrophe when it comes to the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Dann jeweils mit einer Frage, Herr Jung und Herr Jessen.
Yeah, I can make it quick. Mr. Lazzarini, international doctors who have worked in Gaza expect the actual death toll to be much, much higher than is reported right now. What do you know about that? And can you confirm that UNRWA has to report its list of all employees in Gaza to Israel on a regular basis? And has Israel ever objected to the list?
The second part of the question, recommendation of the coroner report was to submit it more frequently, which we have started to do, and we are now submitting on a quarterly basis. I haven't received any objection yet of a list submitted to the Israeli authority. On the death toll, I wouldn't be surprised that in reality the death toll is higher because you have all the people killed in the rubble, or possibly also what we hear underneath, which certainly have not been reported. So the reality might be higher than what we know today.
Herr Jessen, mach den Abschluss.
Asking for your personal opinion, how realistic would it be that a second presidency of Donald Trump would be the beginning of the end of UNRWA?
I guess there is quite a number of likelihood to come. It might accelerate, possibly. I think we are, as you know, in a existential, I wouldn't say existential struggle for the agency per se, but it's also the collective memory for the Palestinian refugees. Now, a year ago, you might have heard me talking about the financial existential threat of the agency, and that was also the time I wanted to trigger a debate with the member state about what do you want to do collectively if there is no political solution at the horizon. You rubber stamp a mandate, but in reality you are not providing the resource. You ask me to operate like ministries. I don't have the fiscal tool to do this. But today, the existential threat is a combination of a political attack and a financial situation. So I think the months to come will indeed tell us how the international community, Israel, the Palestinian will agree on a path, a transition, and if there is a path and a transition, what will be the expected contribution an agency like ours can continue to deliver. I have, as I said, flagged before to the member states of the GA and the Security Council the risk we are taking. In fact, I go back to what I said before. It would be, I think, foolish to throw the baby in the water at the same time without alternative. So that's the nearest I can answer to your question, but the likelihood is here, yes.
Dann möchte ich es dabei bewenden lassen, zeitlich fast eine Punktlande. Thank you very, very much for your visit to Bundespressekonferenz, for your time and your insights, and I wish you all a good and pleasant day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.